Some weeks ago, I saw that one of my kids was wearing a sweatshirt that caught my eye. Immediately, I asked, "Who's that sweatshirt?" "It's mine," was the answer. "Where did you buy it?" "I didn't buy it. Your Bobby, your grandmother, did it." I knew it had caught my eye for some reason. It was, excuse me, it was one of my Bobby's trademark sweaters. This is one of the many memories I hold in my heart of my grandmother, of my Bobby. And among the many memories that I hold in my heart and in my head, there's one that I also hold in my mouth, and it's the gefilte fish for Pesach. But if my Bobby was known for something, is that she was known for the fact that she was a very, very good as weaving sweatshirts and other things, scarves and hats, but mainly sweatshirts, pullovers, yes. And as the moment of Yizkor arrives, the images from the past begin to pass through our minds. And sometimes it's not very simple to express what we feel in Yizkor in just very few words. It's not easy. Maybe by sharing a story with you, that may help. This story was written by the author Miska Miles. I don't know if you know her or not, if it's a known story or not, but I'm not going to quote the story verbatim. I'm going to share the story with you. The story comes from the book that is called Annie and the Old One. Annie was a Navajo girl who loved her grandmother deeply. They were inseparable. When they were together, they laughed at silly things like two little girls. They teased each other, played together, and shared everything they could. In those moments, her grandmother seemed so young. When she sat in her armchair, hunched over and curled up, fragile and small, Annie was reminded of how old she truly was. Each time her grandmother sat down, Annie would run to cover her delicate legs with a warm blanket, a blanket her grandmother had woven herself. One day, during one of their many conversations, a smile softened into the lines of the grandmother's skin. She looked at Annie and said, "It's time to learn how to weave." The small room was divided in half by a tall wardrobe. Behind it stood a beautiful loom with fresh wool already stretched across it. Annie's mother had just begun to weave a new rug there. Every day, Annie watched closely as her mother took hold of the loom's handle, a special piece of carved wood with the image of a native chief. She watched her mother's hands move quickly and gracefully over the taut threads. There was something electric about the motion. "Are you ready to start weaving, little one?" her grandmother asked again. But Annie shook her head hesitantly. Yes? Weaving was work. It was the work of her family, and Annie still only wanted to play. She was still a child. Then one evening, her mother called the whole family together. Annie and her parents stood respectfully waiting for her words. "My children," she said, "when the new rug is finished and taken off the loom, I will return to Mother Earth. I will leave this world." A chill ran through Annie's small body. She looked up at her mother, searching for answers. Her mother's eyes filled with tears that wouldn't fall. Annie didn't fully understand, but heavy sadness settled in her heart. Her grandmother continued, "Each of us must choose one of my belongings to keep as a memory of me. What would you like, little one?" Annie looked towards the handle of the loom, the one with the carving of the Indian chief. The wood was worn and marked by the hands of both her mother and grandmother. As Annie started, her grandmother said, "That loom handle will belong to my little granddaughter." Later, Annie spoke to her mother. How does Grandma know when she will leave this world? How can she know when she'll return to the earth? Elders know many things, my daughter, her mother replied. They know more than most people ever learn. It's the wisdom that comes with years. She paused for a moment and then softly said, let's talk about something else. In the days that followed, her grandmother went on living as though nothing had happened, as though she hadn't gathered the family or spoken about leaving the world. In fact, she seemed even more energetic and cheerful than before. But each passing day, the rug on the loom grew longer and longer. Mama, why are you weaving? Annie asked. I weave so we can sell the rug and buy the things we need, her mother replied. But you know that what Grandma said. Once again, her mother's eyes filled with tears, but she said nothing. Annie turned and ran like the wind across the fields. Exhausted, she sat beneath a shade of a large tree. The thought echoed over and over in her mind. Her grandmother would leave this world when the rug was finished. She couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, wrapped in the blanket woven on the loom, Annie couldn't breathe. She woke up, the moon high and bright, and saw that everyone was asleep. Quietly, she crept outside to the loom. With one hand, she held the heavy wooden handle, and with the other, she gently pulled at the yarn. She undid one stitch, then another, slowly unweaving just a little of the rug. It was hard to do. Her small hands struggled. Finally, exhausted, she returned to bed. The next night, she rose again. As she reached for the loom's handle, a soft hand touched her head. Go back to bed, little one. Her grandmother's face shone with the light of the moon. Annie threw herself into her grandmother's arms. She tried to explain what she had been doing, but her grandmother hushed her gently and led her back to bed. In the morning, Annie followed her grandmother as she walked through the house. The old woman sat in her chair, curled up with her legs crossed. Annie sat in front of her. The grandmother's gaze stretched towards the horizon. My little granddaughter, she said softly, you've been trying to turn back time, but that's something we can't do. The sun rises from the horizon each morning, and it returns there each night. This earth, where everything comes from, is also where everything returns. Annie bent down, scooped up a little dirt in her hand, and closed her fist around it. Slowly, she let the soil slip through all her fingers. She understood. The sun rises and sets. Flowers bloom and wither and fall. She realized that she too is part of the earth, just like her grandmother, just like all human beings. They walked back to the house together, grandmother and granddaughter, and I took the carved loom handle with the chief's face, and with a clear, gentle voice said to her mother, Mama, I'm ready to learn how to weave. We can turn back time, and we cannot delay the weaving. From the moment we are born, we begin weaving our lives and the lives of those we love. The wool becomes part of our very bodies. Every garment we wear, every life that we live has a shape and a texture of its own. Each piece of weaving is unique in its design. At this moment, we pause to remember the garments woven by those who once stood beside us. Today, we see the looms of lives all around us. Their shapes and colors awaken vivid memories. In the moment of Yizkor, we understand that we cannot go back in time, but we also know we must not stop weaving. The loom must keep turning. The threads of our lives are stretched before us, and the rug must go on being woven. This is Yizkor. This is the moment when we must keep weaving. Yizkor starts on page 330.